Have you ever caught yourself wondering if you're doing better or worse than everyone else when it comes to money? Maybe it's late at night. You're lying in bed, staring at your bank balance, and a question quietly slips into your mind. Am I doing okay, or am I falling behind? Maybe you scroll through social media, and all you see are pictures of people your age taking vacations, buying new cars, or posting about their dream homes. And you can't help but wonder, how are they affording all of that? Are they earning more, or are they just hiding the debt behind those perfect photos? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the real financial situation of the average person. And I can guarantee some of these numbers are going to surprise you. Some might make you breathe a little easier, realizing you're not as far behind as you think. But others might hit you like a wake-up call, a reminder that time moves fast and financial progress doesn't happen by accident. By the end of this video, you'll have a crystal clear picture of where you stand compared to everyone else, and more importantly, what to do about it. My name is Mike, and welcome to Mike Compound, where we make money simple, smart, and even a little fun. If you're serious about getting your finances on track, building real wealth instead of chasing trends, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. It really helps out, and it means you'll never miss a future breakdown like this one. Now, before we jump into these shocking statistics, let me ask you a question. When you imagine the average person's financial life, what picture comes to mind? Do you think of someone who's responsible, saving and investing every month, slowly building wealth and preparing for retirement? Or do you picture someone who's constantly stressed about money, living paycheck to paycheck, hoping things somehow work out in the end? Here's the truth. Most people have no idea what normal really looks like when it comes to money. We see what others want us to see, the shiny side of their financial lives, but not what's happening behind closed doors. And that gap between perception and reality, that's where so many financial mistakes are born. Understanding what the average looks like isn't just about curiosity or comparison. It's about using that knowledge to make smarter choices with your own money. Think of it this way. If you're trying to get in shape, wouldn't you want to know the average weight or daily activity level of someone your age? If you're studying for an exam, wouldn't you want to know what the average score is so you can measure your own progress? Money works exactly the same way. When you know how your situation compares to the norm, you stop guessing and you start acting. You can see where you're already ahead and where you need to catch up. You can stop feeling lost and start feeling in control. So today, we're breaking down the financial life of the average person in America, from income and spending to debt, credit, retirement, and net worth. Some of these numbers will sound almost unbelievable, but that's the point. Most people's finances are far more fragile than they appear. And if you take just one thing away from this video, let it be this. You don't need to do anything extraordinary to be financially above average, because, as you'll soon see, the bar isn't nearly as high as you might think. All right, let's start with the first big question that affects every single person watching this right now. How much does the average person actually earn? Every paycheck tells a story about how much we earn, how we live, and how far ahead or behind we might be without even realizing it. So, let's start at the foundation of every financial life, income. According to the most recent data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median weekly earnings for a full-time worker in the United States come in at just over $1 million. That adds up to roughly $52,000 per year before taxes. Now, that's not household income. This is individual income, meaning it doesn't include a spouse or anyone else contributing to the household budget. And because we're talking about the median, it means half of all workers earn more than that amount and half earn less. It's the middle of the pack. If you're making around $26 an hour, congratulations. You're earning right around the national average. But here's where the picture starts to shift. That $52,000 figure might sound reasonable at first, until Uncle Sam steps in. After you account for federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, and Medicare, that paycheck shrinks fast. Depending on where you live, you might be taking home somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000 per year. Suddenly, what looked like a comfortable middle-class income starts to feel a lot tighter. Think about it. $40,000 per year after taxes works out to around $3,000 a month in take-home pay. From that, you have to cover housing, transportation, food, insurance, healthcare, and so if you're financially responsible, saving and investing for the future. It's no wonder so many people feel like they're just barely treading water. But income is just one piece of the puzzle. What matters even more is what you do with the money once you earn it. And this is where we start to see the real divide between financial stability and financial struggle. Let's pause for a moment and think about this. The average person earning $52,000 a year isn't poor. They're not destitute, but the reason so many people still feel broke isn't because they don't make enough. It's because of how their spending and saving habits stack up against that income. Before we dive into that, though, let's look at how income changes across different stages of life. Because the average paycheck looks very different at 25 than it does at 40. Workers aged 20 to 24 typically earn about 38 soms per year, while those between 25 and 34 earn closer to 53 soms. By the time people hit their late 30s and early 40s, their peak earning years, the average climbs to around 63 soms, but here's the kicker. After age 55, that number starts to drop again. That means most people only spend about 2 decades in their financial prime. The problem? Those are also the years when life gets expensive, raising kids, paying mortgages, funding college, taking care of aging parents. So, when people say, "I'll start saving later when I earn more," they're often running out of runway before they even realize it. Because yes, income may grow with time, but so do responsibilities. And that's why the people who get ahead financially aren't necessarily the ones earning the most. They're the ones who understand how to manage what they earn, even when it's average. If you want proof, consider this. Even someone earning $40,000 per year can build a 6-figure investment portfolio over time if they live below their means and invest consistently. It's not about being rich, it's about being intentional. So as you look at your own paycheck, ask yourself, how much of it is actually working for you? And how much is just passing through your hands? Because the truth is, earning the average income isn't the problem. The problem is what most people do, or don't do, with it afterward. And that brings us to one of the most eye-opening and honestly sobering topics of all, what the average person has saved for retirement. When it comes to money, there's one number that separates financial comfort from financial panic, and that's your retirement savings. Because no matter how much you earn, if you're not setting something aside for your future, you're setting yourself up for stress later on. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey, the median amount Americans have saved for retirement is $65,000. That's not a typo. $65,000. And remember, that's the median, which means half of all people with retirement accounts have less than that amount saved. But it gets worse. About 25% of Americans don't have any retirement savings at all. Zero. Nothing. No 401k, no IRA, not even a small savings account labeled retirement. That means 1 out of every 4 people you meet is planning to rely entirely on Social Security when they stop working, assuming it's still fully funded by the time they get there. For those who do have retirement savings, the numbers vary widely by age, and the reality is alarming. People under 25 have a median balance of less than $2,000. Now, to be fair, that's understandable. If you're 22 and just starting out, having $2,000 saved is at least a start. But it highlights something crucial. The earlier you begin, the easier the road ahead becomes. Between ages 25 and 34, the median retirement balance climbs to around $14,000. Not terrible, but also not nearly enough when you realize that many people in this group have been working for several years already. By the time we reach people aged 65 and older, the median retirement balance rises to $88,000. That might sound okay at first, until you run the math. Let's say you retire with $88,000 and follow the 4% rule, a classic financial guideline that suggests withdrawing 4% of your savings per year to make it last for decades. 4% of $88,000 is just $3,320 per year, or about $293 per month. That's not a typo. $300 per month, that's all the income your retirement savings would generate. Now ask yourself, could you live on $300 a month in retirement? Even if your home is paid off, that wouldn't cover groceries, utilities, medical costs, or even basic living expenses. It's terrifying when you think about it. This is why understanding these statistics isn't just about curiosity. It's a wake-up call. If you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s right now, these numbers should light a fire under you. Because the truth is, the average person isn't saving enough, and the longer you wait to start, the harder it gets to catch up. Now, let's talk about Social Security, because for millions of people, that's their entire retirement plan. According to the Social Security Administration, the average monthly benefit is about $150. That's around $18,600 per year. That might sound manageable until you remember that inflation keeps pushing prices higher every single year. A $150 monthly check might have worked fine a decade ago, but today it's barely enough to keep the lights on and cover groceries. And here's the tough part. Not everyone even qualifies for that full amount. If you spent years working part-time, earning less, or taking time off from the workforce, your benefit could be hundreds of dollars less each month. Some people choose to plan their finances as if Social Security won't exist, treating any payments they get later as a bonus rather than a guarantee. That might sound pessimistic, but given the long-term funding challenges facing the program, it's not a bad mindset to have. Because here's the bottom line, the future belongs to the people who plan for it, not the ones who hope it'll all work out. And based on these numbers, hope alone isn't a strategy. But before we get too caught up in the distant future, let's look at what's happening right now in people's day-to-day lives, because how much we earn and save is only half the story. What really determines financial success is how much we spend. Let's talk about where all that money actually goes. Because earning an average income and even saving a little doesn't mean much if your spending habits are quietly draining your wallet behind the scenes. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American household spends about $5,000 per month. Over a year, that's roughly $67,000 in total spending. Think about that for a second. The average household is spending $67,000 a year, and yet we just learned that the average income after taxes for many households is far lower than that. You don't need to be a math genius to realize that means a lot of people are spending more than they make. When your spending equals or exceeds your income, you're not living, you're surviving. And worse, you're sliding deeper into debt without even noticing. Now let's break that spending down. The biggest chunk, no surprise, goes to housing. The average household spends about $100 per month just to keep a roof overhead. That includes rent or mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance costs. That's over $22 per year just to have somewhere to live. And if you're in a big city like New York, Los Angeles, or San Francisco, that number might sound laughably low. Because in some cities, $1,800 barely gets you a small apartment, if you're lucky. The next major category is food. Between groceries and eating out, the average household spends about $690 per month, over $8,000 per year just to stay fed. And let's be honest, that number can easily balloon if you eat out frequently or love ordering takeout after a long workday. Then comes transportation, which eats up around $900 per month. That includes car payments, gas, maintenance, insurance, and even public transportation. Over the course of a year, that's nearly $11,000 just to get from point A to point B. When you add housing, food, and transportation together, you're already at roughly $3,500 per month. And we haven't even talked about healthcare, entertainment, clothing, insurance premiums, or the small luxuries that sneak into our budgets. It's easy to see how the average household can end up spending every penny it earns, and then some. This is why so many financial experts suggest a simple rule. Your housing and transportation combined should not exceed 50% of your income. But for millions of households, those two categories alone already take up 70 or more. And when you live that close to the edge, there's no room for savings, investments, or emergencies. That's how people fall into the broke despite earning decent money trap. What's even more interesting, or maybe frustrating, is how spending has changed over time. Decades ago, families spent more on essentials and less on luxuries. Today, even though we earn more on paper, lifestyle creep, the gradual increase in spending as income rises, has eaten away most of the gains. We upgrade cars instead of keeping them longer. We dine out more instead of cooking at home. We buy new phones every year because of minor updates. None of these choices seem disastrous in isolation, but together they quietly erode financial progress. Here's a harsh truth. The average person isn't broke because they don't earn enough. They're broke because they spend like they earn more than they do. And while understanding spending habits is key, there's another layer of the financial puzzle that reveals even more about people's money health, their credit and debt. Because spending too much doesn't just empty your wallet, it can trap you in cycles that last for years. So next, let's dig into one of the most telling indicators of financial discipline, credit scores. and what the average numbers really reveal about how Americans handle debt. Let's move to the part of money that most people try to ignore: debt. Because it's one thing to earn, save, and spend, but the moment debt enters the picture, everything changes. Debt can either be a tool that builds your wealth or a trap that slowly strangles it. For most people, unfortunately, it's the latter. Let's start with credit scores, that mysterious three-digit number that decides whether you get approved for a loan, how much you pay in interest, and even, in some cases, whether you get a job. According to Experian, the average FICO score in the United States is 715. That's actually a pretty solid number. Credit scores range from 300 to 850, so 715 falls in the good range. It means most people are at least doing a few things right: paying bills on time, keeping balances low, and avoiding too many new credit inquiries. But here's where the illusion starts. A 715 average doesn't mean everyone's doing great. It just means there are enough high scorers to balance out the ones struggling. Millions of Americans are still walking around with scores in the 500s and 600s, and they're paying the price for it. Literally. Low credit scores mean higher interest rates, denied loans, and limited financial options. The good news: building good credit isn't rocket science. It comes down to three simple rules: pay your bills on time, don't max out your cards, and avoid opening new credit accounts just to get discounts at checkout. Follow those, and your score will climb, slowly but surely. But while credit scores show discipline, credit card debt shows the reality. And that reality is tough to swallow. The average household carries over $9 million in credit card debt. Let that sink in. $9,000 owed on short-term spending. This isn't a car loan or a mortgage, things that at least have lasting value. This is money spent on everyday items, vacations, gadgets, and things that often disappear faster than the debt itself. What makes it worse is the interest. Credit card interest rates aren't 5% or 10%. They're often 20% or higher. That means if you owe $9,000 and only make minimum payments, you could end up paying over $1,800 per year in interest alone. That's money that could have gone into savings, investments, or paying off your home. But instead, it's going straight to the banks. And here's the irony: most people with credit card debt aren't reckless. They're just trying to maintain a lifestyle that looks normal by today's standards. A dinner out here, a new phone there, a few treat-yourself purchases, and suddenly, the balance snowballs. The truth is, it's easy to slide into debt when society tells you that spending equals success. But what it really equals is financial pressure. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture: net worth, which is arguably the most important number in your financial life. Your net worth is what you own minus what you owe. It's the true measure of your financial health. According to the Federal Reserve, the median net worth for American households is about $122,000. But just like everything else, it varies dramatically with age. For those under 35, the median is less than $14,000. From 35 to 44, it rises to $91,000. Ages 45 to 54 jump to $168,000, while 55 to 64-year-olds average around $212,000. Finally, for people 65 to 74, median net worth peaks at $2,000. Here's the fascinating part: none of these numbers are unreachable. You don't need to be a millionaire or a stock market genius to achieve them. You just need time, consistency, and discipline. Spending less than you earn, avoiding high-interest debt, and investing the difference. That's it. It's simple, not easy. But there's one more piece to this puzzle: how much the average person actually saves. Because even if your income and credit are fine, saving too little can undo everything. And that's exactly what we'll explore next: how the typical savings habits of most people quietly determine their financial future long before they realize it. If there's one number that truly reveals how people handle money, it's their savings rate. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, Americans save about 6% of their income after taxes. 6%. That's it. Now, on the surface, that might not sound terrible. But let's think about what it really means. If you make $50,000 a year, that's just $3,000 saved annually. And if some of that money goes towards short-term goals like buying a car or making a down payment, there's very little left for building long-term wealth. Consider this: the average down payment on a home in the U.S. is around $62,000. A kitchen renovation costs about $26,000. The average new car, over $47,000. If you're only saving 6% of your income, how long would it take to afford any of those things without going into debt? Financial experts often suggest saving at least 10 to 15% of your income for retirement alone, in addition to what you're saving for other goals. And if you ever want to retire early, that number probably needs to be closer to 20-25%. Now let's talk about the finish line most people are aiming for: retirement. The average American retires at age 61. Sounds great, right? Retiring before 65 seems like a win, but here's the catch. Most people can't collect full Social Security benefits until age 67. So if you stop working at 61, you've got 6 long years to cover on your own. And based on those retirement savings numbers we looked at earlier, that's not just difficult, it's nearly impossible. Here's another perspective. If you start working at 22 and retire at 61, that's nearly 40 years in the workforce. 4 decades of alarms, commutes, bosses, and bills, all to reach a point where the average person only has about 88 chums saved. That's $300 a month to live on. After all that time, all that effort, that's what the average leads to. The Social Security Administration says that someone who reaches age 65 can expect to live another 19 to 21 years on average. So if you retire at 61, you could easily live 25 years or more in retirement. That means your money has to last longer than most people's entire working life. This is why understanding these statistics matters, because the average approach to money, the saving, the spending, the waiting, simply doesn't work. But here's the good news. Once you know what average looks like, it's easy to rise above it. You don't need a massive salary, an MBA, or a secret stock-picking strategy. You just need to do what most people don't: save more than you spend, invest consistently, and think long-term. If you're saving more than 6%, you're already ahead. If you're avoiding credit card debt, you're already winning. And if you're investing, even small amounts, you're doing what most people never do. The truth is, being above average financially isn't about luck or privilege. It's about discipline, clarity, and commitment. Beat the average just a little in every category, and the compound effect will carry you miles ahead. Because in the end, these statistics don't define your future. You do. I'm Mike, and this is Mike Compound, where we make finance simple, smart, and achievable. If this video helped open your eyes to the reality of money, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share it with someone who needs that wake-up call. The numbers may be average, but your future doesn't have to be.